So in this video, I'd like to share what I've learned about the Dutch settlement in the United States and what we can still find today. If you're aware of the situation, you should probably, well, most people do, that New York was originally New Amsterdam, and they called this area Newfoundland. So they had settled New York, so it was New Amsterdam, and they spread up the Hudson, which they called the North River, and then later on they claimed to have settled the Delaware Bay, which they called the South River. They also settled in Hartford, Connecticut. We're going to learn why Hartford and Albany are probably the state capitals. But to understand what we're talking about here, let's look at a list of the establishments. So these are forts that the Dutch built. I mean, this is Wikipedia. We're not relying too much on information that these people provide because we're going to find out real quick that there's a lot of inaccuracies here. But it's a list to start with. So New Amsterdam, and if we get this little pop-up here, is the point of Brooklyn. And what you see, we have a Starfort here. And then we had come back here. I wanted to show you something. Well, that didn't work. Okay, well, we can still do it. So, this is all fortified. We got this wall going on here. But I need to be back on the other page. So this wall right here, and we're going to start looking at how all this relates. So this wall right here, today, is this thing here they call the Wall, which is today Wall Street. They're going to tell us right here this was a wooden palisade or a rampart. Well, we know it wasn't wood. The wood part is what they're trying to fake us out with these days. Everything was wood. We know that's not true. So we got this one sort of covered. That's Wall Street. We got this place here. This is Governor's Island. If you're aware of the Starforts in America, this one still exists. One of the nicer ones, right there. We'll glance at it. I'll point it out. We got Rhode Island. You can look this up. It's not relative to the story, really. This is hard to find. What's interesting is they were calling these trading posts and or factories. They weren't really referring to them as forts. But the reason I'm down here in this other fortifications is these two down here that are tucked in here. One's on the North River, one's on the South River. Excuse me, one's on the North River, and this other one is right across from New Amsterdam. This is when they first went to the west side of the river. They created this fort. We're going to look at these two, but not right away. We're going to start with the history. And you can see that actually Fort Nassau and Fort Orange are both in Albany, New York. They actually established Albany before they established Fort Amsterdam. This is somewhat significant for a couple reasons. And then this fort here after New Amsterdam, like I said, they moved across the river to Fort Bergen, and then they spread out to this place down on the South River. The rest of these are, with the exception, okay, sorry, one more exception. Fort the Good Hope is in Hartford. We're going to look at that. So we're going to start in Albany, and then we're going to look at Hartford. And then we're going to come down the North River. But what you're going to find here real quick is the rest of these forts are all these forts. The Swedish, all these Swedish forts are on the South River, the Delaware Bay area. The Swedish had already settled this area while the Dutch were settling the North River, the Hudson River. The Swedish were settling on the South River, and then the Dutch just came in and took over. So we'll look at these last. But as you see, there's really not much here. a couple forts in Albany, and then we have Hartford, Connecticut, and then we have all these forts on the South River. So we'll start with Albany. There's 2 forts in Albany. According to WikiLeaks, there's actually 3 forts there. There were 3 forts there. The first one was flooded out. They've even got this backwards. The first one was built on Castle Island, and it got flooded out. So then they built Fort Orange on the mainland, along with another fort. The Dutch had granted 2 different land grants to the same area, one to a private individual and one to basically the military, to protect the land. So what they did, and just to show you where we have inconsistencies with all this, we're going to look at one more thing here, see if I'm in the right place. Yes, Fort Frederick. So this is what we got going on in Albany. Now this, they're telling us here, they're telling us that the British built this on top of Fort Orange, but that's not what history tells us. I want to show you this real quick, and then we're gonna look at Google Earth, Google Maps, because we're gonna look at all these places. This website right here, the New Netherland Institute.org, is a wealth of information and maps, and this is where I got a bulk of my information. This is where I found out a lot of this history background. But anyways, they talk about how this was built by the private individual. You can see this little fort here. This is Fort Frederick. That is this right here. This is Fort Frederick. Fort Orange was built by the protectorate, the military at the time. And I don't have my terminologies correct. You'll have to dig into this history. I can't remember all the details and names and dates and all this. So just trying to keep it in a somewhat of a manner to understand what's going on. So these are 2 forts, Fort Frederick, Fort Orange. The first fort, Fort Nassau, flooded away. They built this. So this is what's going on in Albany. So now we're going to look at it. Let's get in and look at this. So I had to research to find where all these locations are. But it really is simple, because most of these towns are built around the Starforts. So we just start center of town. But before we get in there, let me explain one more thing. This right here used to be an island. This was called Castle Island. This is where Fort Nassau originally was. This was the first establishment that the Dutch did. Would be, right up there with the first in America, I guess, if you're going to believe what we're told. But this got flooded out almost right away. So then they built, and logically, and if you look at almost any city, it's like this. You get this little center town and then this green area around it. So we're going to zoom in on this. Look what we got going on here. I've done a bunch of research in here into this just to figure out what's going on. Took me a while to sort it all out, but get my bearings here again. We got little Dutch apple tours here, but here we go. Here's a marker for. This is a marker they give us for Fort Orange. But again, sorry, go away. When we look at what's going on here, this was the old town right in through here. And right in through here. And then this would be, right up in here would be Fort Frederick. And if you look at what we got going on here, this is a massive structure. This is a state capital. This is why Albany is Albany. This is why Albany is the capital of New York. What's going on? They built this thing on top of the Starfort. That's what's going on here. I could point this back out one more way. I think I'm in the right place. Yep. Fort Frederick, sitting on top of State Street Hill, Capitol Hill. They built Fort Frederick. They built the state capitol on top of Fort Frederick, and this is the Capitol building. And then so, I mean, this is certainly my belief. There's a sign right in front of this saying Fort Frederick. I mean, it's not a hidden fact. What's more interesting, just as interesting, we get in a little closer and look at this monstrosity. We have the legislative offices over here, and right behind it we have Fort Orange Club. We have a little insiders club right to the back of this whole state capitol thing going on. So that's what we have left. And a little disclaimer, what we're going to find is that none of these forts actually still exist, but you'd be amazed at what is there in their place. So let's look at Hartford. This is Fort Good to Good Hope. Now this fort doesn't exist, and there's little information on it other than what history tells us, that it was a Starfort fortification. They built it as a trading post, fortified trading post, so oftentimes referred to as a factory or factory. I'll point that out. So what I've been able to track down is they claim the fort would have been located in an area that is today referred to as Dutch Point. So looking around, trying to find Dutch Point. Okay, so again, we logical place is to start looking in the center of the city. The city surrounds the Starfort, built out around the Starfort. Logical place to look, in my opinion. So we get on in here, and of course I've done all this. And I had to get in. Okay, so we have green areas. Green areas are usually giveaways. They also said they named one of the roads after the fort. Hoy's, in Dutch, it was Hoy's Good Hope. Something to this effect. Anyways, we have Dutch Point. This is a community center. Sorry, I don't mean these things to keep popping up. And we have Dutch Point, and this one I do. Is actually a management company. But this must be the Dutch Point area. The road they're talking about is actually right here. Hoy's Hope Avenue. Is Fort. Let's get this right. Just, I'm not sorry. Hoy's de Good Hope. Hoop is one way of pronouncing it. It's spelled a couple different ways. Fort Good Hope is what we're looking at. So we don't know where exactly it is, but we know it's right in this area. And what do we have here? Well, we have a park area, and I've looked around. There's nothing obvious, except for, I mean, what is this area right here? Another green area here, just a couple blocks away. And what do we have? Oh, we have another state capitol building, just like the one in Albany. I mean, what do you bet they built this on top of the Starfort, Fort Good Hope? Right here, in this section of town, right where it makes most logical sense. That's my theory. Can't tell you. So coming from Albany, down the river, the next thing on the list is actually here in Kingston. And I'm going to show you some real Starforts. Unfortunately, again, none of the ones on this list still exist, but you'll be fascinated by what is in all these locations. All right, hope you will be. I was. So we get in on here. What we're looking for is this round out place. So we got round out lighthouse. This was a fortification here. And the reason why, we don't explain really why it's here, is a trading post they set up. But what we got going on here is a canal system. And this is it. So this is where we are. We're right up in here on the Hudson River. And there's a canal system that goes all the way out into Pennsylvania, starting at this point. That I'm not sure. I hadn't heard of it until I found this location. So this Starfort's gone, but there's remnants of the canal still there. I thought that was rather significant. Probably somewhere right in here. Might have been right in here. This looks, didn't really even look at it before, but this looks pretty probable for a Starfort. About. So what did I had yeah, so anyways, this is a little thing. Oh, I guess we'll look at the history a little bit. Show you what it said about. There's a Dutch equivalent for the word meaning fort or stronghold. Was erected near the mouth of the creek, a redoubt, and that's why it's called this round out. To take off on a play word. So, backing out again, move on down the river. So now I'm going to show you a couple other things that's going on here because there's nothing else until we get back down to New Amsterdam, but it's coming down the river. There's a few things I know are in here, but what Newburgh caught my attention because Berg is German for fortified, a walled town or city. So anything named Berg, and I found this to be somewhat true in America. I don't know why, but it's a German word. So I took a glance at it, and it's got some of the makings of being a fortified town. It's got the green area around it. Seems a little bit. So I, just out of curiosity, dug in here, and was quite fascinated to find out that this was Washington's headquarters during the Revolutionary War. Yeah, so you gotta wonder. Starforts all around you. Why would you hang out somewhere else? But I think that's worthy of some more research. But let's move on down. We're just right above West Point. I'll show you a couple forts here that most people, if you're aware of forts, you know of. Well, I'm going to show you something else you may not be aware of. We got Fort Constitution over here. And Fort Putnam up here. Fort Putnam. But what most people aren't quite aware of, we get in here, find the play, there it is, popped right up. This is actually West Point Academy. This is Fortress West Point. Let me show you what that is. Got the right page? No. 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 Oh, sorry. Got it here. Come on. This is what used to be there, Starfort. They built the academy right on top of a Starfort. They had chains strung across the river so ships couldn't get up and down. Right right center. You can kind of see it in the building if you look out. So it was a massive starfort at one point. They called it Fort Clinton. Moving down the river a little bit, we got a town called Fort Montgomery. This is another thing about America. You'll find if it's called a fort, there was a fort there. If it's Fort something, Fort Myers, Florida, Fort Lauderdale, Florida were both old Spanish forts. They don't exist anymore, but I can pin where they were. That's why they're called Fort Lauderdale. Anyways, we have these are Civil War, we are told these are Civil War Starforts. But this was a Starfort. And then we have another Fort Clinton right here. They built the bridge right on top of the fort, and this is also the zoo. Another thing they do with Starforts is parks and zoos, and show you where they use them for bridge landings. And anyways, there's not much to see here, but there used to be a Starfort right there. So we move on down the river some more. There's probably a whole lot more going on than I'm showing you. I mean, I'm just showing you some stuff off the top of my head. Come on, Peter, what are you doing? Yeah, I'm on the wrong bridge. You see what got Fort Lee popping up already. There were 3 Starforts down in here. I'm trying to keep this video short. I want to show you everything else, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on here. But you can, I don't know if Fort Lee, if there's anything to see here. There's parts of this you can see. There was actually 3 forts right in here. 2 forts here, 1 over here. This is all, we got old maps of all this stuff. But anyway, so the next thing we're going to show you is, and again, if you're new to Starforts, you need to look at Statue of Liberty is built on top of a Starfort. This is Governor's Island. This is a Starfort right here. It's a very nice Starfort. You need to look at it. I'm not going to take the time to show you. Fort Greene over here. This was also another Starfort. There's a couple of them in here. I think Fort Greene is, there's something maybe left there. I forgot. It's been a while. I can't remember everything. I do find this a little bit interesting that there's a golf course right off to in Liberty Park, the way they do land grabs around there. Because there's a lot more going on. They're hiding lots of history behind. They're not telling us the real story. And so this Fort Bergen, this is the first, once they established New Amsterdam here, building out, Fort Bergen was over here. And we can look at this real quick. Just, what did it say? Fort Bergen Palisades, something. You see the pop-up? Oh, come on, give me the pop-up. Okay. It's at the intersection of these, it's 2 streets. I'm going to show you these streets. There's intersection of Bergen Avenue and Academy Street in Jersey City is where they built this Fort Bergen. The street blocks are still the same. Come on. And what we're looking for is for it to focus. And then there's a Bergen Street. Well, there's a Bergen section. If you back out of here, it'll tell you it's Bergen section. Come on, show me. Bergen section. So we zoom in. They tell us that this square block here is the layout of the original fort. Here's Bergen. Here's Academy Street. This is the intersection they were just pointing to. So this used to be a Starfort. And what do we have here? Well, we have a cemetery and a golf course. And pretty interesting little arrangement going on here. Let's look at the water view. This looks like it used to be a port. And the reason why this is all significant is, again, let's go back to satellite. Let's go back to this canal picture, because this lower canal, this Morris Canal that runs down into Easton, right on the Pennsylvania, it runs all the way across New Jersey, starts right there. That's the port. See, what's going on here, this canal, they're using the river as part of the canal system. This is the way the river goes, comes down and around and back up into this port. Back out here so you can see this a hair better. So you got Newark, show it coming down and around and back up into here. This was part of this canal system. Today it's a golf course. So that's the North River. Let's look into the South River here. Start with this one other. So they built Bergen, and then they did one other post that's not connected with the Swedish. They said they settled it temporarily and then abandoned it shortly afterwards. But we'll look at what they tell us. So we're going to look at this Burlington Island right here. This is where they said they settled temporarily and then abandoned it. But let's back out for a second, because I found this little area here to be quite intriguing. I don't know what the story is on this. I just realized this was even here. Kind of an interesting thing. But let's look at the storyline here. We're looking at Burlington Island. And doesn't appear to much be here. This interesting little bay here. I mean, it looks like it might have been a bay. Could have had a fort here. Who knows what the true story is? They supposedly did this and then abandoned it shortly later. But we hear how they built Starforts in 3 days and stuff. But what's interesting about it to me is, and this is another thing I'd like to point out, is first of all, let's look at it. It says Bristol Lions Park. Let's see what's pop up. Bristol Lions Park. But let's look at this a little closer. Oh, all of a sudden it's Delaware State Park. Delaware Canal State Park. So what, we have a canal system here. So there's a canal system here. So, go figure. But they abandoned it. So we're going to move further down. Let's look at we have at least one Starfort in Philadelphia we can show you. This is a Civil War. I believe it's Civil War. They built 3 different series of forts. They called them first system, second system, and third system forts in the United States. I believe the first system was the Revolutionary War. I'm going to have to get a drink. I'm about to cough. Sorry. Okay, sorry. Second system forts, I think, were the Revolution. I have to really look it back up as Revolution, Civil War, and the War of 1812. 3 series. So it's Fort Mifflin here in Philadelphia. So this would be the start of the forts. Fort Nassau would be the first fort. See, now this is what we got here. They're telling us Fort Nassau. They're telling us the Dutch built it. But this is a Swiss map of all their locations. Now, I just happen to have one that's a little better. I think it's this one here. It's not really necessarily a better map, easier to read. Show us Fort Nassau. This is a list of all the Swedish forts that the Dutch basically came and took over. So I'm going to show you each and every one of these locations. The Swedesboro is actually a town. It still exists. There's actually looks like a pretty little town. Doesn't seem anything strange about it at all. Now this is a Swedish map of the town. I was making sure I get Switzerland and Sweden mixed up all the time. But Swedish map. Brain lock here for a second. They're showing this town down here. This is now Lewes, Delaware. The current name is Lewes. The only thing significant in this little town is there's a canal through this town that creates the inland waterway, helps create the inland waterway. Yeah, go figure. Canal town. But they claim the Dutch settled this. I don't know if this is a Dutch name or a Swedish name, but this is a Swedish map, and they're showing it on here. But the Swedes settled before. These are all Swedish forts up in here that the Dutch took over. So the Schuylkill River, if I pronounced it right, probably didn't, comes right into Philadelphia. This is where Fort Mifflin is, right here. So these first two forts, this K and this V, K Fort Nye Korsom. I probably can't pronounce any of these names. And V, this Nye Vesa, on the other side of the river. And Fort Nassau, they're all right here in Philadelphia. And through research, I can show you these points. And let's just get in and look at it. The Fort Stockholm. Okay, we'll look at these first three forts, and then we'll get into these three forts. And then we'll come look at these three forts. There we go. Three, and three. We'll do it that way. So we're looking at these three forts. Both sides of the river, at the mouth, coming towards the mouth where Fort Mifflin is. You'll see all this in a second. And then Fort Nassau's on the other side of the river. So let's look at this. Let's get in and look at Fort Nassau first. That was supposedly the first of the locations that the Dutch built, even though the Swedish already had it. Anyways, there's nothing that, again, none of these forts still exist. The only thing they can tell us is it was built on the side of the Big Timber Creek. So somewhere in here. This is Little Timber Creek. I'm thinking if it was here, I mean, it could have been here. It's both sides of this Big Timber Creek, but I'm thinking they would have set on the point of this, but they don't know. Could be somewhere in this area was Fort Nassau. Nothing exists other than this big storage facility. Nothing bizarre about this place. There's a little bit of mining going on back here, it looks like. Cemetery. Okay, so looking back. So we have Fort Mifflin here. But now here's the Skull Creek River. And we have a fort somewhere on this side and a fort on the other side. And what do we have here? A golf club. And a little marina thing. Let's look at this. What's the chances of that? Hey, it's a Navy Yard. This is the Naval Yard in Philadelphia. Isn't this where they did the Philadelphia experiment? And what do we got here? FDR golf course and the American Swedish Historical Museum. Folks, this was a Starfort. Navy Yard in Philadelphia, where they did the Philadelphia experiment, was a Starfort. Across the river, I can't find anything definitive. We have two parks. I'm thinking it could have been in this location, up into over in here. I'm leaning towards this area over here, but it could have been right here. Come on, stop the point and move the camera. Thank you. I didn't really realize this, but we do seem to have a facility down in here. Either one's probable. Hard to say exactly on that. So then the next three forts are over in here. One, we're told, is in Chester. And I didn't find anything odd about Chester. Except when you get in here somewhere. Got this little canal thing. Oh, this is what I did find odd about Chester. I'm sorry, I was thinking of something else. This is William and Penn's landing site. This is supposedly where William Penn landed when he just, they named Pennsylvania after him. This is supposedly where he set foot in Chester. That's all I really found there. But they say there was a Starfort there. One of the fort names, I can't pronounce them anyway, so there's no point going over it. The second location, second of the three forts we're going to look at here in this group, would have been right down in here. This Governor Pritt's Park. Governor Pritt's was the governor of New Sweden. This was his home within the Starfort. This is just the other end of where Fort Mifflin is. So we got a Starfort in here. Would have been a Starfort in here. We got Fort Mifflin right here. Chester would have been a Starfort. And then the other one was just the other side of Chester, right in this area. Can't find anything significant. Don't have a location. Nothing odd about it. This little town of Swedesboro, it's right here. Seems to be a quaint little town. I'm not even sure there's a golf course. Seems like a nice place to live. Nothing strange about it at all. That I can tell. So then, the next three forts I'm going to show you is in Fort Wilmington. We had Fort Christina. This is one of the strongholds of the Swedes, and then the Dutch took it. This is definitely a Starfort. Maps pinpointed right in here, and we get down and look, and it tells us it was there. Fort Christina Park, Old Swedes Church. This was Old Starfort. Then we have, and this is what I was thinking about a minute ago. The next Starfort would have been down here. Lost my marker for a second. Oh, got it. In Newcastle. Newcastle is named Newcastle because there was a fort there. Don't have an exact location, but again, You get in and look. Somewhere I saw Dutch House Museum right down the middle of this square. I would be guessing this is probably a good place for it. Seems like a logical location. So, we do have another Starfort we can look at. This would have been a Civil War, I believe one of the Civil War forts. I have to look at it again. As far as which war it was supposed to be part of, but this is a moated fort. This is just like Fort Monroe. What we got going on here, this is right across from the old canal, which hooks into the new canal, which connects the Delaware River with the Chesapeake Bay. This is a huge canal system, and the old canal was there. There's probably, well, I say probably, there was a fort in here. It says it tells us it was. Fort Delaware State Park. Well, that's Fort Delaware, but there's another fort in here, Fort DuPont State Park. Come on. Yeah, they're going to tell us this is a little building here. Who knows? Anyways, the third and last of these three forts, which would be the ninth fort of the Spanish forts, was Fort Ellsberg. And it was over here on this point here. And we get in here, and you can see the road's name, Fort Ellsberg. They tell us that they don't know where it is. They believed it washed into the sea. Fort Ellsberg Road, but we conveniently have a golf course here. And what's a little more interesting about this golf course is they don't even use it. And there's a cemetery. Golf courses and cemeteries go together a lot. Anyways, so that is the location on all these forts. The Dutch settlement, that they took over the Spanish settlement, and the locations down through here. We can look at Lewes. Again, just another canal system. Everywhere they went, there was a canal system. Either they built them or they used them. Somehow they left them behind. So we got a canal system comes through here so you don't have to get out into the ocean. Takes you down long. So that's the Dutch settlement here. It's a little bit extra here, I guess. So I showed you the canal system that ran out into this area of Pennsylvania. Another canal system ran all the way across New Jersey into Easton. There used to be a canal system out of Philadelphia. It's still much of it's remaining. Ran out to Harrisonburg and then up into, I believe all the way up into here somewhere. But one of the things, I'm going to show you this on another, I'm going to do a whole nother video on this, but just wanted to share this, what one of these videos is going to be. This is a list of canals in the United States. The number of canals, not miles, the number of canals in each state. 18,241 canals in the United States, according to this. Now, I happen to live in Virginia, and I looked up the list of these. You can pull up this reference point, and it'll give you a list of these canals. And of these 59 canals, they say, that are in Virginia, I know of 8 of them that are not on this list. So, just something to look at in the future. But I'm going to end this video. Appreciate you watching. Hope you got something out of it. And thank you for your time and peace.